Hey Cancer, come sit with me for a bit. I just pulled some cards about what might be creating distance in your connection, and I need to share what came through because honestly, these insights are pretty eye-opening. Grab your coffee or tea, get comfortable, because we need to talk about what's really happening beneath the surface of this situation. So I'm looking at your energy right now, and there's this interesting pattern showing up. You Cancers are naturally so emotionally intelligent, so connected to feelings and intuition. But sometimes that same gift can become complicated when fear enters the picture. And that's what I'm seeing here, this interplay between wanting closeness and being afraid of what that closeness might cost you. Let me pull the first card and see what the universe wants us to understand about your situation. The first card coming through is the Three of Pentacles, and okay, this is really interesting because this isn't typically what people expect when asking about romantic blocks. But stay with me here because this card is revealing something important about how you've been approaching this connection. The Three of Pentacles talks about collaboration, about building something together, about the practical foundations of partnership. And what I'm sensing is that part of what's keeping things from progressing is this disconnect between the emotional realm where you naturally live and the practical realm where relationships actually need to function day to day. Here's what I mean. You might be so focused on the feeling dimension of this connection, on whether the emotional chemistry is right, whether you feel safe, whether your heart is singing the right song, that you've maybe overlooked some of the practical conversations that need to happen. Like, have you two actually talked about what you're building together? Do you know if you're working toward the same vision? Because the Three of Pentacles is suggesting that there's been this assumption that emotional connection alone will carry everything forward, but relationships also need structure, planning, teamwork on the mundane stuff. I'm getting that maybe you or this other person has been hesitant to bring up practical matters because it feels less romantic, less magical. You don't want to ruin the vibe by talking about real-world logistics or expectations or timelines. But here's the thing, avoiding those conversations actually creates more distance than having them would. It leaves both people kind of floating in this ambiguous space where nobody knows exactly what they're building, or if they're even using the same blueprint. The Three of Pentacles is asking you to recognize that love needs both heart and hands, both feeling and doing, both connection and collaboration. What's keeping things from moving forward might simply be that you haven't yet partnered in the practical sense, haven't yet sat down and mapped out what this thing could actually look like in real life. The second card I'm pulling is the Three of Cups, and this one made me pause because it's adding another layer to what we're seeing. The Three of Cups is typically about celebration, friendship, joy shared among a group. And in the context of what's blocking your connection from progressing, this card is pointing to something specific about social dynamics and external influences. Let me explain what I'm picking up on. There's a possibility that your social circle or friend groups are playing a bigger role in this situation than you might realize. Maybe there are friends who have opinions about this connection, who are in your ear about whether this person is right for you, who are influencing how you see the relationship. Or it could be that one or both of you is so embedded in your respective friend groups that the relationship hasn't really had space to develop its own identity, separate from everyone else's input and presence. The Three of Cups can sometimes indicate that what should be an intimate connection between two people has become a bit too crowded with other voices and perspectives. I'm also sensing something about comparison here. Like maybe you or this person is comparing this connection to other relationships you see around you, to what your friends have, to some idealized version of partnership that exists in your social sphere. And that comparison is creating pressure or doubt. You might be wondering why your connection doesn't look like what you see with other couples, why it's not progressing at the same pace, why the dynamics are different. But the Three of Cups is reminding you that every connection has its own rhythm, its own timeline, its own unique flavor. What's keeping things from moving forward could be this external noise, these outside perspectives that are making it hard for you to trust what you actually feel and experience in the connection itself. There's also something here about emotional availability being scattered across too many relationships. Like maybe you're giving so much emotional energy to friendships and social obligations that there's not enough left over to really nurture this romantic connection. Or perhaps this person is doing that. The Three of Cups celebrates community, but it can also warn about spreading yourself too thin, about prioritizing group dynamics over intimate bonds. So part of what needs to shift here is creating more protected space for just the two of you, space where outside influences can't seep in and muddy the waters. Now I'm pulling the third card. And we have the Nine of Pentacles coming through. Oh, this is revealing something really important about independence and self-sufficiency as potential blocks. The Nine of Pentacles represents someone who has built a beautiful life for themselves, who is comfortable alone, who has cultivated their own garden and feels complete in their solitude. And in the context of what's keeping your connection from progressing, this card is highlighting how one or both of you might be holding on to independence so tightly that there's no real room for partnership to develop. Let me unpack this because it's subtle but significant. As a Cancer, you value security deeply, and you've probably worked hard to create emotional and maybe material stability for yourself. You've learned to be your own safe place, to tend to your own needs, to build a life that feels good even when you're alone. And that's genuinely beautiful and important. But the Nine of Pentacles is suggesting that this self-sufficiency might have become a bit of a fortress. It's one thing to be whole and complete within yourself. It's another thing to be so comfortable in your independence that you're subconsciously resistant to the vulnerability and compromise that partnership requires. I'm sensing that there might be fear underneath this independence. Fear that letting someone in fully will disrupt the peace you've created, will make demands on you that feel threatening to your autonomy. Maybe you've been hurt before, and you rebuilt yourself so carefully that now you're protective of that reconstruction. You don't want anyone coming in and messing up what you've worked so hard to establish. And that's completely understandable. But the Nine of Pentacles is asking you to consider whether you've perhaps overcorrected, whether you've made your life so self-contained that there's genuinely no space for another person to fit into it. This card can also indicate that one or both of you is waiting for the other person to prove they won't disrupt your carefully cultivated stability. You're watching, assessing, making sure they're worthy of entry into your world. But that kind of gatekeeping, while protective, also prevents real intimacy from forming. The Nine of Pentacles is inviting you to recognize that healthy partnership doesn't mean giving up your independence or your beautiful self-sufficient life. It means choosing to share it with someone, to let them add to it rather than take from it. What's keeping the connection from moving forward might be this unwillingness to open the gate and let someone actually walk through your garden with you. The fourth card is the Nine of Swords. And okay, now we're getting into the mental and emotional anxiety that's playing a huge role in keeping this connection stuck. The Nine of Swords is the worry card, the overthinking card, the 3 in the morning lying awake replaying every conversation card. And Cancer, I have a feeling this one is hitting close to home because your emotional sensitivity, while being one of your greatest gifts, can also turn into a source of intense anxiety when you care about someone. What I'm seeing with the Nine of Swords is that there's been so much mental anguish around this connection, so much worrying about what could go wrong, so much replaying of interactions and analyzing of every word and gesture. You might be lying awake thinking about all the ways this could fail, all the potential hurts, all the signs that maybe this isn't right or isn't going to work out. Your mind has been creating nightmare scenarios that may have no basis in reality. And here's the thing. When you're trapped in that cycle of anxiety and worst-case thinking, it's almost impossible for the connection to move forward because you're not actually present in what's happening now. You're living in a future catastrophe that hasn't occurred and may never occur. The Nine of Swords often indicates that the fear is worse than the reality. The things you're worried about, the scenarios you're playing out in your mind, they're likely much more dramatic and painful than what would actually happen if you took a risk and moved the connection forward. But that anxiety is paralyzing. It's keeping you frozen, keeping you from taking steps that could actually bring you closer to this person. Because what if you're vulnerable and they don't reciprocate? What if you express what you really want and they can't give it to you? What if you let your guard down and end up hurt? These fears are completely understandable. But the Nine of Swords is showing that they've grown so large that they're blocking your path forward. I'm also picking up that there might be some projection happening here, where past hurts and past disappointments are coloring how you see this current situation. You might be applying lessons from previous connections to this one, assuming patterns will repeat, expecting pain because that's what you've known before. But this person is not your past. This connection is not your history. The Nine of Swords is asking you to separate what's actually happening from what you're afraid might happen, to ground yourself in the present reality rather than the anxious fantasies your mind is creating. What's keeping things from progressing is this mental prison of worry, and the key to that prison is in your own hand. It requires consciously choosing to challenge those fearful thoughts, to question whether they're true, to risk being wrong about the worst-case scenarios. Now the fifth card comes through, and it's the Six of Cups. This card brought an immediate sense of understanding about what's happening, because the Six of Cups deals with the past, with nostalgia, with old connections and familiar patterns. And in the context of what's blocking forward movement in your connection, this card is revealing that the past is still very much present in this situation, maybe more than you've consciously realized. The Six of Cups can indicate a few different things here. First, there might be actual past connections or ex-partners that are still taking up space in your heart or mind or this other person's. Maybe you're comparing this new connection to an old love, wondering if it will ever measure up to what you had before. Or perhaps there are unresolved feelings for someone from the past that are preventing you from being fully available for what's in front of you now. The Six of Cups asks whether you've truly closed those previous chapters or if part of you is still holding the door open, just in case. But there's another dimension to this card that feels really relevant for you, Cancer. The Six of Cups often represents comfort in the familiar, a longing for what feels known and safe. And what I'm sensing is that you or this person might be so attached to how things have been, to the current dynamic and rhythm of the connection, that there's resistance to letting it evolve into something different. Like, maybe you've been friends or casual for a while and that feels comfortable and safe. Moving into more serious territory would change the dynamic. And change is scary even when it's what we want. The Six of Cups shows that you might be unconsciously clinging to the past version of this connection, because at least that version is predictable. I'm also getting something about childhood patterns and early relationship templates. The Six of Cups connects to our earliest experiences of love and care, and it's asking whether you're repeating patterns learned long ago. Did you learn that love means pain? That closeness leads to abandonment? That vulnerability gets punished? These early templates can run so deep that we don't even see how they're influencing our current choices. What's keeping the connection from moving forward might be that some part of you is following an old script written decades ago, assuming that if you reach for more, you'll get hurt the same way you were hurt back then. The sixth card I'm pulling is the Five of Pentacles, and this one brings up themes of scarcity, exclusion, and feeling left out in the cold. The Five of Pentacles shows two figures outside in the snow, walking past a warm, lit church window. They're struggling, possibly injured, definitely cold and depleted. And in terms of what's keeping your connection from progressing, this card points to a sense of lack, a fear that there's not enough love or security or commitment to go around. Here's what I'm picking up. There might be a scarcity mindset operating in this situation, either in you or in this other person. A belief that if you claim what you want, you'll lose what you have. A fear that there's not enough good to go around, that choosing this person means missing out on something else, or that this person might choose something or someone else instead of you. The Five of Pentacles often shows up when we're feeling unworthy of warmth and inclusion, when we're standing outside the church looking in rather than walking through the door into the light and warmth that's actually available to us. I'm sensing that part of what's blocking forward movement is this feeling of emotional poverty, this sense that you don't deserve to have the connection you really want, or that it's not available to you for some reason. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you're asking for too much, that you should be grateful for whatever crumbs of attention and affection you're receiving. Or maybe you're afraid that if you express your real needs and desires, you'll discover there isn't enough on offer to meet them, and that discovery would be devastating. So you stay in this cold place, this depleted place, rather than risk finding out. The Five of Pentacles can also point to practical concerns, to financial insecurity, or material circumstances that are creating stress and blocking emotional progress. Like maybe one or both of you is going through a difficult time, practically speaking, dealing with money problems or career instability or health issues. And those external stressors are making it hard to focus on building the relationship. You can't think about love and connection when you're worried about survival. But the card wants you to notice that church window, that symbol of help and warmth and community that's right there. Sometimes we're so focused on our struggles that we don't see the resources and support that are actually available. We stay out in the cold when we could walk inside. What's keeping things from moving forward, according to the Five of Pentacles, is this poverty consciousness, this sense that there isn't enough love, security, or resources to build something solid. And the invitation is to challenge that belief, to consider that maybe you're standing in the cold by choice, that the warmth you seek is available if you're willing to reach for it. The seventh card coming through is the Knight of Wands, and this energy is very different from what we've seen so far. The Knight of Wands is passionate, impulsive, adventurous, always chasing the next thrill. And in the context of what's blocking your connection from progressing, this card is pointing to an instability or restlessness that's preventing things from settling into something real and committed. Let me break down what I'm seeing. There's a possibility that one person in this dynamic maybe you or maybe them, has this Knight of Wands energy where they're excited about the connection, but not ready to slow down and build something stable. They want the passion and the excitement and the adventure, but when it comes to actually planting roots and making commitments, they pull back or get distracted by the next shiny thing. The Knight of Wands loves the chase, loves the beginning stages of romance when everything is new and thrilling, but can struggle with the steadier, deeper work of maintaining a relationship over time. For you as a Cancer, this energy might feel really destabilizing because you need security and consistency. You need to know that the person you're investing in is actually going to stick around, that they're not just passing through on their way to their next adventure. And if this Knight of Wands energy is present in this connection, it's creating a fundamental mismatch between what you need and what's being offered. You're trying to build a home while they're trying to go on a road trip. Those are two very different agendas. But here's another angle on this card. The Knight of Wands could also be describing a pattern where the connection has been characterized by intensity and passion, but without real substance or follow-through. Like maybe there are these amazing moments of connection, these sparks of chemistry and excitement, but then nothing actually develops. It's all fire and no foundation. The Knight of Wands charges in with grand gestures and passionate declarations, but then doesn't do the boring daily work of actually building a relationship. And you might be realizing that passion alone isn't enough, that you need someone who will show up consistently, not just dramatically. What's keeping the connection from moving forward could be this restless, uncommitted energy. Either you're afraid to commit because you're worried about missing out on other possibilities, or this other person has one foot out the door, keeping their options open. The Knight of Wands is asking whether there's a real willingness here to stop chasing and start building, to exchange excitement for stability, to let the connection mature beyond the initial spark into something lasting and real. The 8th card is the 6 of Swords, and this card brings a sense of transition, of moving away from turbulent waters toward calmer shores. The 6 of Swords shows a figure in a boat, being transported across water, leaving something behind and heading towards something new. And in terms of what's keeping your connection from moving forward, this card suggests that one or both of you is still in transit, still processing and healing from past experiences, not quite arrived at a place where you can fully engage with what's in front of you. Here's what I'm picking up with this card. The 6 of Swords often appears when someone is emerging from a difficult period, when they're healing from heartbreak or disappointment or trauma. And the thing about being in that boat, in that transitional space, is that you're not really available for new beginnings. You're still focused on what you're leaving behind, still recovering from the journey that brought you to this point. And that makes sense. Healing takes time. Processing takes time. But it also means you might not have the emotional capacity right now to build something new. What's keeping the connection from moving forward could be that one or both of you saying yes with your words, but your energy is still caught up in the past, still healing wounds that haven't fully closed. And you can't build something solid when you're still in the boat, still in motion, still transitioning. The 6 of Swords suggests that there needs to be an arrival, a moment of reaching the shore and saying, okay, I'm here now, I'm present, I'm ready to engage with what's in front of me rather than still processing what's behind me. I'm also sensing that there might be some emotional distance or detachment happening as a form of self-protection during this transition. The figure in the 6 of Swords often looks somewhat numb or shut down, just focused on getting through the crossing. And if you or this person is in that state, where you're emotionally unavailable as a way of protecting yourself while you heal, then real intimacy can't develop. You're keeping yourself at a safe remove, not letting anyone get too close while you're vulnerable and recovering. The 6 of Swords is ultimately a hopeful card because it shows movement toward calmer waters, toward peace and stability. But it's also asking for patience, for recognition that the journey isn't complete yet. What's blocking forward movement might simply be timing. The fact that someone isn't quite ready yet, isn't quite at the shore yet, is still in the boat dealing with their own healing process. And the question becomes whether you're willing to wait, whether this person is worth waiting for while they complete their crossing. Now I'm pulling the 9th card, and we have the Ace of Wands showing up. This is really interesting because the Ace of Wands is all about new beginnings, creative potential, passion, and inspired action. It's the spark of something fresh and exciting. And in the context of what's blocking your connection from moving forward, this card is revealing something about unrealized potential and fear of initiation. The Ace of Wands represents potential that hasn't been actualized yet. It's the idea phase, the moment of inspiration, the spark before the fire. And what I'm sensing is that this connection has been sitting in potential for a long time without anyone actually taking decisive action to move it into reality. Maybe you both feel the spark, recognize the chemistry, know there's something there, but nobody is picking up the wand and doing something with it. Nobody is taking the risk of making the first real move, of saying what they want out loud, of initiating the next level of the relationship. For you, Cancer, this might feel especially vulnerable because you tend to wait for safety cues before you extend yourself emotionally. You want to know you won't be rejected before you take the risk. But the Ace of Wands is saying that sometimes you have to act on inspiration without guarantees. You have to pick up that wand and channel that creative energy, even when you don't know how it will turn out. What's keeping the connection from progressing might be that both of you are waiting for the other person to go first, to take responsibility for moving things forward. And in that mutual waiting, the potential just sits there, unexpressed and unrealized. The Ace of Wands can also point to a lack of clear intention or direction. Like the passion and chemistry might be there, but what are you actually trying to create with this connection? What's the vision? What's the goal? Without that clarity of purpose, even strong energy dissipates because it has nowhere to go. The Ace of Wands is asking you to get clear about what you want to build here, what you want this connection to become, and then to take inspired action toward that vision rather than just floating in the ambiguous space of unmanifested potential. There's also something here about creative problem solving. If there are obstacles keeping you from moving forward, the Ace of Wands suggests that there are innovative solutions available if you're willing to think outside the box. Maybe the traditional relationship progression doesn't fit your situation. Maybe you need to create a unique structure that honors both people's needs and circumstances. The Ace of Wands is the card of originality and innovation. It's asking whether you've been trying to force this connection into a conventional mold when what's needed is a more creative approach. The 10th and final card I'm pulling is the Seven of Pentacles. And this feels like such a fitting card to close with because it's all about patience, assessment, and long-term cultivation. The Seven of Pentacles shows someone pausing in their work, leaning on their tool, looking at what they've planted and grown so far, evaluating whether their efforts are paying off. And in terms of what's keeping your connection from moving forward, this card speaks to the tension between patience and impatience, between trusting the process and wanting results now. Here's what I'm seeing with the Seven of Pentacles. You've been investing in this connection, putting in emotional energy and time and care. You've been tending to it, watering it, hoping it will grow into something beautiful and substantial. And now you're at this point where you're standing back and asking, is this actually going somewhere? Are my efforts being reciprocated? Is this investment going to pay off? And that's a completely valid question to ask. The Seven of Pentacles honors the need to pause and assess, to make sure you're putting your energy into something that has real potential, rather than just hoping and waiting indefinitely. But here's the challenge with this card. Sometimes we evaluate too soon. Sometimes we want to see results before the natural growing cycle is complete. You might be so focused on whether this connection is progressing fast enough that you're not appreciating the growth that has actually occurred. Or you might be so anxious about the future that you're not present with what's developing right now. The Seven of Pentacles asks whether you're giving this connection the time it actually needs to mature, or whether you're trying to rush harvest season, because you're anxious about the investment you've made. What I'm picking up is that part of what's keeping things from moving forward is this energy of evaluation and hesitation. This pause where you're trying to decide if this is worth continuing to invest in. And while that evaluation is necessary and wise, it can also create a stuckness where you're so busy analyzing and assessing that you're not actually nurturing anymore. You're standing there with your arms crossed, watching and judging, rather than continuing to tend and care for what you're trying to grow. The Seven of Pentacles is asking you to find a balance between wise assessment and patient cultivation, between protecting your investment and trusting the natural timing of growth. There's also something here about different timelines and expectations. Maybe you and this person have different ideas about how long things should take, about when certain milestones should be reached. You might be ready for harvest while they're still in planting season. That mismatch in timing and expectation can create frustration and doubt. The Seven of Pentacles is inviting you to have honest conversations about timelines, about what you're both working toward and how long you're willing to invest before expecting to see results. Because if you're working with different calendars, no wonder there's confusion about whether things are progressing appropriately. Okay, Cancer, let me bring all of this together for you because there's a really clear story emerging from these cards about what's been keeping your connection from moving forward. And I want to be gentle but honest with you about what I'm seeing. At the foundation, there's this disconnect between emotional chemistry and practical reality, shown by the Three of Pentacles. You might have amazing feelings for each other, but you haven't done the work of actually building a structure together, of collaborating on the real-world aspects of partnership. That's creating a situation where the connection feels good, but doesn't have solid ground to stand on. The social dynamics represented by the Three of Cups are complicating things. Whether that's external voices and opinions, comparison to other relationships, or emotional energy being too scattered across your social circle rather than focused on nurturing this intimate bond. There's been too much noise and not enough quiet space for just the two of you to figure things out. Your independence and self-sufficiency, while beautiful and hard-won as shown by the Nine of Pentacles, has perhaps become a bit of a protective barrier. You've built such a complete life for yourself that letting someone in feels risky, like it might disrupt everything you've carefully created. And that fear of disruption is keeping you from opening the gate fully. The anxiety and overthinking represented by the Nine of Swords has been absolutely paralyzing. Your beautiful emotional sensitivity has turned into a source of torment, where you're playing out worst-case scenarios and living in fear rather than being present with what's actually happening. That mental prison is blocking forward movement because you can't take next steps when you're frozen in fear. The past is still very present here, shown by the Six of Cups. Whether it's actual previous relationships, old patterns and wounds, or just comfort with how things have been, there's a resistance to letting this connection evolve beyond familiar territory into something new and potentially more vulnerable. The scarcity mindset of the Five of Pentacles has you believing there's not enough love, security, or possibility available. You might be standing outside in the cold, convincing yourself you don't deserve warmth, when actually you could walk through that door if you chose to. This poverty consciousness is keeping you small and scared. The Knight of Wands energy speaks to either restlessness and lack of commitment or a pattern of intensity without substance. There's been passion but maybe not real follow-through, excitement but not stability, and that's creating doubt about whether this can actually become something lasting and real. Both of you or one of you is still in transition, still healing, still in the boat as shown by the Six of Swords. And you can't build something solid when someone is still processing their past, still emotionally unavailable because they're focused on their own healing journey. There needs to be an arrival, a readiness to be present. The potential represented by the Ace of Wands hasn't been actualized. The spark exists, but nobody is taking decisive action to turn that spark into a fire. You're both waiting for guarantees before taking risks, waiting for the other person to go first. And in that mutual hesitation, nothing manifests. And finally, the Seven of Pentacles shows you in this pause of evaluation, trying to decide if your investment has been worth it. If this connection is actually growing the way you hoped. That assessment is important, but it can also create stagnation if you're so busy analyzing that you forget to keep tending to what you're trying to grow. So what's keeping your connection from moving forward, Cancer? It's a combination of fear and practicality avoidance and external noise and protective barriers and unhealed wounds and unrealized potential. It's the space between what you feel and what you're willing to risk. It's the gap between emotional chemistry and actual commitment. It's the difference between hoping something will develop and actively building it together. But here's what I want you to hold on to. Nothing in these cards says this connection is doomed or impossible. What they're showing is where the work needs to happen, where the healing needs to occur, where the courage needs to be summoned. If you want this connection to move forward, you're going to need to address these blocks consciously and intentionally. That means having practical conversations even when they feel unromantic. It means creating boundaries with external influences and protecting your intimate space. It means being willing to let someone in even when it feels risky. It means choosing to challenge your anxious thoughts rather than believing them. It means releasing the past and being present. It means claiming your worthiness for love. It means looking for commitment and stability rather than just passion. It means giving yourself and this person the time and space to heal and arrive fully. It means taking inspired action on potential rather than waiting for guarantees. And it means balancing patience with honest assessment of whether this investment makes sense for you. This is your journey, Cancer. Nobody can tell you whether this connection is worth pushing through these blocks for. Only you know that. But what the cards are making clear is that if you want forward movement, it's going to require conscious work on all these levels. It's going to require vulnerability and courage and honesty and patience. And the question you need to ask yourself is whether this person, this connection, is worth all of that. because you have the power to work through these blocks if you choose to. The question is, do you choose to? I hope this reading gave you some clarity and insight into what's been happening. Trust yourself to know what's right for you. Trust your intuition even when it's scary. And know that whatever you decide, you're worthy of a love that feels good, that moves forward, that meets you where you are and grows with you.